my name is Kara Brown. I am an urban fantasy author and the operations director for Otherworld Inc. And I'd like to welcome you to another tarot deck review video. For those of you who are new to my channel, typically what happens here is I actually focus more on my life as a writer. I give writing advice. I cover topics that the writing community likes to talk about. But on every other Tuesday right now, I like to go ahead and kind of indulge in one of my passion projects, which has to do with tarot. Now, I have a lot of decks. I have too many decks. And I'm under an obligation with my spouse right now that in order for me to have a deck, I need to do reviews for the decks that I have, and we have 14 more to go. So we're going to go ahead and start working through this one deck at a time, so that way I can go ahead and indulge in my collection problem and buy more tarot cards. So for today's video, we are going to do a review of the Tarotorial deck, and I'm struggling with that because that's literally what it's called. I got this because it says it's the ultimate training card deck. I saw it on Etsy and I was like, pretty curious about it, and I kind of wanted to go ahead and take a look at it. Now I did already open it, so this isn't a first impression thing. I opened it, I looked at it, and there's some things I like and don't like about it, but we'll dive into that. Now, usually what happens here is I give a very long, I kind of show you guys the cards and I talk about like the artwork and stuff like that, but these cards have like no artwork in them at all, which kind of threw me for a little bit. This tuck box actually is not too bad. So yeah, actually this is a really nice tuck box. So if you're the kind of person that likes to have a container for your deck, I would just leave it in this box. It's pretty functional, and use it until it wears out pretty much. Normally when I have a tarot deck, one of the things I have to be concerned about is like, where am I going to keep this deck at? Because mini decks usually come with what I call, or what's called a companion book, and the companion book is what takes up most of the space in the tarot boxes, and then you're left trying to figure out where you're going to keep your actual deck at. But yeah, so that's not a problem here, so that's a perk. I'm always here for that. So the box comes with this deck, and it also comes with this little booklet, and this little booklet here is mostly different spreads that you can use, which is nice. We all like to use spreads. So it has some pretty basic stuff that's in here. You don't have to stick with these. You can always just go out and find other ones on Pinterest, or you can Google them. But obviously it's not going to talk a lot about the meanings of the cards, because the cards themselves actually have that pretty detailed in here. I actually want to use a card that I'm pretty well acquainted with, so that way I can talk in depth about what I like and don't like about it, so just give me a second. So given that a lot of us can't go outside for obvious reasons, I thought that we could all use the Hermit as a nice example of what we're looking at now. I'm looking at the screen and not at you, so apologies, but the Hermit is kind of, I have mixed thoughts on this layout, and I'll talk about that because this is just a Caro preference thing, but right here, it's got the number of the card, it's got the name of it right here, it's got the keywords, so that way if you just need to see the keywords for a refresher, that's there. It's got a description here, I'll read that to you in a minute, and then of course it's got some of the major signs and elements that it is also part of. So I think that's actually really good, because that's a lot of information that somebody who doesn't really do well with looking at pictures and they don't want to flip through a book, that's pretty good. Let me go ahead and read the meaning to you real quick. The Hermit card depicts a person standing alone at the peak while holding a lantern. Inside the lantern is a six-pointed star, also known as the Seal of Solomon, which represents wisdom. The Hermit speaks to the level of a spiritual knowledge attendant and a readiness to deliver that knowledge to others. And under that it says, don't ignore your inner voice. To really hear yourself, you may need to unplug and step away from the chaos. Be sure to take time to be alone or to do some soul searching. Your answers are within. And then I'm just going to read the inverse for you real quick. So the inverse says, secluded at this time may do more harm than good, as it will cause you to get lost in a world all on your own. Be sure to connect with those around you. The Hermit may also signify the need to investigate something that you may have troubling you. So I like that it actually describes what's supposed to be on the picture. That's good. The advice thing, I can take or leave that, because typically what happens when you're working with tarot is that when you build up a relationship with the card, meaning not the cards themselves, it's always the meaning of the card, you're going to see the meaning of the card change. And then also one thing that I would say as somebody who does do readings pretty frequently is that this meaning that the card is basically saying, like the advice it's giving, it's not always going to be the same. So, right here where it says don't ignore your inner voice, to really hear yourself, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes when I pull the Hermit up for somebody, it means that this is the time that you need to withdraw and go ahead and reflect on what's going on and all this other stuff. So For me, I think I don't need the advice part of this very much. Just because I had to collect my thought there for a minute. I don't like the advice part of this just because when you're interpreting the cards, the advice is going to be coming from you and your interpretation of the cards. It shouldn't actually come from this explanation on here. But at the same time, you'll find this stuff also in the companion books for a lot of decks, and you can take or leave that as well. So got mixed thoughts on that. But like I said earlier, I do like that's got the keywords, and I do like how it explains what's supposed to be on the cards. So even though there is no actual image on here for you to work with, it's not bad. I would definitely recommend this as a training deck. So I'm saying again, this is a great training deck for somebody who's never used this before. The one thing that I do want to point out is that usually when you work with tarot, let me find a different deck to work with. So I want to go off on a little tiny mini tangent about the layout of this. Now again, I'm just going to keep saying it. It's not bad for new people. But for when I do tarot card reading, I'm going to use the Revelations deck as an example of this. One of the things that I often find when I'm doing a reading for somebody and I'm using one of these decks that have a picture in it, is that sometimes there's something in the picture that will grab my attention the most. Either it be maybe sometimes it's been the old man beard or the staff that he is holding. Sometimes it's the lamp. It's a lot of different things. And when you do tarot readings, sometimes your attention is going to focus on certain details when you're doing whatever reading for the individual that you're reading for. And at this point in time, I haven't tried this. This is literally, I opened this deck up earlier this week. I haven't really done a test trial outside of just doing the interview with it. But I am not really sure how I'm going to be able to do this with the way that this is laid out. So that is my one concern that I would have as somebody who reads tarot doing it this way. I don't know if I can get my brain to switch boxes like that. Maybe my attention might focus on a word on here or something like that. Maybe that could work. But again, I've been doing this since I was an early teen, so that would be a new trick that this dog would have to learn. Anyway, that is my concern. That might not be a problem for anybody else, but again, I just, it was just something I felt like wanting to express while I was looking at these cards. But now that that's done, we can go ahead and talk about other things about the card, like the type of card quality. So the finish on this card is not too bad. It's not very thick. Cardstock is pretty flexible. So if you wanted to, actually, this is super flexible. So if you wanted to do a riffle shuffle, you could. Let's check this out. Okay, so that riffle shuffles pretty well, actually. And the cards aren't getting bent too bad. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, maybe they'll get bent just a little tiny bit. So if you put them back in the container and you keep them flat, you should probably do that. Let's see. It's not like a matte finish. I mean, it is a little bit, but there's definitely a little bit of a shine to it. It's not that extensive though, because normally you can tell if you have a matte finish on a card, because what happens is there's a drag. Oh, there's a little bit of a drag. Is that there's a drag on the cards, which makes doing certain kinds of shuffling hard to do. But I just did that riffle shuffle, and there was little to no difficulty on that. I will say that they actually feel nice. Not silky nice, but they definitely have a good texture to them, which is nice. I'm a pretty big stickler for having cards that are of good cardstock quality, because if you're using them pretty regularly, having a good cardstock is going to prolong their life. I will say though, and this is just really me to anybody out there, is that the cardstock on here is white. You can kind of see it. And the only reason I'm mentioning that is because the back and the inside border are dark colors. So once you start using these and you're actively using them, you are going to start scuffing them. They are going to look kind of shabby. So not sure if this is a deck that you want to actively use in regular practice. I mean, it's not bad. And again, it comes down to the type of reader that you want to be too. Yeah, there was a drag on this. Normally at this part of the video, I will occasionally talk about the art and how the artist decided to depict and talk about what makes it unique and all this other stuff, but apparently there's nothing to talk about. This is what makes it unique from every other deck that I've had. I think for a new person, this is a really amazing study aid. I would definitely give this to somebody who is new. I would give them a traditional deck as well, so that way they can flip back and forth between the two. I don't have any regrets buying this. I don't, for those of you who are wondering. Will I probably be actively using this myself in regular daily readings? No, probably not. But I don't know what I'm actually going to use it for. I may, because at some point in the future I'm going to do like Caro's Tarot, as I like to call it, where I basically talk about all these cards in depth, and I think I might lean towards using this as a good basis to kind of spring off of, and then use all the other cards for that. So I would definitely use this as an educational tool for sure. So just to summarize, it's not a bad deck. Would definitely recommend for new individuals who are new to tarot and they want to know a little bit about it without having to constantly look back and forth between the companion book. I, as a personal opinion, do feel like somebody is losing something when there aren't any images that are involved to look at, study, and connect with, but there are people who connect better with words than they do with images, so, you know, there's that too. I do like the little booklet it came out with where it talked about the 3 different card spreads, 4 if I look at the back. So that's really good. I'm kind of surprised there's no 3 card spread in here. Yeah, no 3 card spread in here. So this is a really good launching board for those who are new and they're just kind of trying it out, and they don't have to flip back and forth between looking at the card and reading the card, so there's that bonus in there too. Again, I said this before, I'll say it again. I would give somebody this deck, but I would also give them a traditional deck to kind of work with as well, just so that way they can have a visual aspect to connect to. Personal opinion, but there you go. I feel a little cheated that I don't have any art to like critique and kind of go after, because that's actually one of the things that I really love about tarot. But that's not bad, because I do have another deck that I want to review that does have a lot of art in it, so I've got that going for me. So that concludes the interview for today. Please feel free to leave your opinion down below. What did you think about this deck? Are you interested in getting it? If you are interested in getting it, I do have a link for it down below, so that way you can go check it out. If there is a deck that you would like to have reviewed, please let me know. Put that comment down below. I'll see if I have it. If I don't, I'll put it on the to-do shopping list for later, because girlfriend always needs more tarot cards here. But that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day.